Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is go over the materials and the measurements with you guys. So if you skip over this part, first of all, what I'm using for fabric is the 100% cotton fabric. It's not the stretchy stuff, it's just the regular cotton fabric. And I'm going to be using this Wonder Woman fabric for the outside, and then this just plain black fabric for the lining pieces. And then here I have a piece of fusible interfacing, which I am using the Pelon number 809, and I think it's called Decor Bond. You don't really have to use it for this, but I like the crispness that it gives the fabric, so I'm using it for this project. And for the measurements, we're going to do 18 inches long by approximately 10 inches wide. So that's going to be for the interfacing piece. We're going to do one piece of the outside in that size, and then one piece of the lining in that size. And then I have a piece of the outside fabric that's going to be for the flap that goes over, and that is approximately, I almost forgot what my measurements for that were. That's 8 inches wide by 18 inches long. And then we have a piece here for the pockets, and this is going to be about 6 inches wide by 18 inches long. We also need some ribbon or something for the tie. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set all the pieces aside except for the outside piece, the large piece for the outside piece. And what I'm going to do is with interfacing, the shiny side is the sticky side. That's the side that needs to be touching the wrong side of the fabric. And the dull side needs to be the side you're seeing on the outside. And I don't want to do this whole process in real time, but what I'm going to do is start by ironing over the top of the fabric, and you can get your little spray bottle and just put some plain water in it and just spray it all over the fabric. This should spray out, but it doesn't. I need to get a new one. And I'm just going to iron over the top using pretty high heat, not super high. You can on the fabric side, but when I flip it to the interfacing side to iron that, I want to turn the heat down just a little bit, because you don't want it to crinkle, the interfacing to crinkle when you're ironing it, because I think at that point it kind of loses its stickiness. Okay, you can see I've got the interfacing pressed on there, and it's nice and crisp. And so now I'm going to put this aside. We're done with that for now. Now we're going to take this pocket piece, and I'm going to fold down. If you had a wrong side and a right side, which on this black fabric obviously you really don't, you would want to fold this down facing the wrong side. But what I'm going to do is just make a little fold over, and I'm really sorry that it's hard to see on here, but I'm just folding over about a ½ inch, pressing that down really good. Just pressing down about a ½ inch, and then I'm going to lay this aside, and I'm going to go ahead and press this flap piece, which will be what flaps over, to keep the brushes from falling out. So in order to prepare this pocket flap, what we're going to do is I'm going to have to press over the sides and then press the top so that it's nice and neat, because the only thing we're going to sew into the piece is this the bottom part of the flap. So I've pressed this one, and I only did one fold over on the sides, and I did a double one on here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew a double line down each, all three of these sides that I pressed, just to hold them down and to make them look nice and neat. If you have a double needle and you can use that, by all means do. I don't have a double needle and I'm just not getting that fancy today, so I'm just going to do it like one line and then another line all the way around. And then what I'll do is I'll take this pocket piece where I folded it over, and I'm also going to sew a double line down it so that it'll be nice and neat when we get ready to attach it to the other piece. Okay, you can see I've got these pieces sewn with the hem lines, the fold overs, whatever you want to call them. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lining piece and the pocket piece, and I'm going to put the right side, the wrong side of the pocket piece facing the right side. If you had fabric that had right and wrong side, facing each other. We're laying the pocket down and we're going to attach it to this piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a zigzag stitch on my machine because I don't have a serger, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Just don't have room for it. Never really learned to use them that well, to be honest. And I like my zigzag stitch. It works for me for the things I make. So I'm going to make kind of a tight, small zigzag stitch, and I'm going to go all the way around these three sides, leaving the top open. So now I've got the pocket attached. Now what I want to do is I want to make little pockets all along here to fit the brushes. And since my daughter's makeup brushes are all different sizes, I'm going to just randomly select. I didn't really have like a plan on how many pockets to put in here, because that's kind of hard to figure out when you got to measure the width, the roundness of the brushes and all that. But I just kind of got an idea, and I've already made one of these and it worked out great, so I'm going to do the same thing here. Before I get started sewing these lines, I just want to give you a little tip. I would start from the bottom up. It just, for some reason, works out better. When you start from the top and you work your way that way, it's kind of seems to end up bunching up for me. I don't know. If it works out for you the other way, you can do it that way. If not, my recommendation is bottom up. So here I go. I'm going to sew all these lines and then move on to the next step. Now we have got all of our little pockets sewn in here ready for the brushes, and I'm going to take this and set it aside. And now I want to take the outside piece. We're going to attach some ribbons so we can tie it nice and pretty whenever we roll it up, when it's all completed. So I'm just going to cut a couple of pieces of ribbon about the size, the length of the whole thing. And the reason I'm doing that, I mean, it's just, you know, the first time that I made this, I thought the ribbon was a little short, and I cut it slightly shorter than this, so I'm going to cut it this long so that there'll be plenty to tie it off. So what I want to do is lay the ribbon on top of itself, each piece on top of the other. Can't talk today, y'all. And I'm going to go about midway, and this is up to you if you want to fold this over and measure exactly in the middle. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I'm going to lay this down here with the ends facing the, even with the end of the piece. And I'm going to pin it. Where'd my pin go? Okay. I want to pin it close, because what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to attach it. And I'm just going to use a tight zigzag stitch and go back and forth a couple of times so that it's attached. You can see that's attached with a really tight zigzag stitch. Okay, so the next thing I want to do after I've attached this ribbon is I'm going to pull this pin out, and I'm going to fold the ribbon over, and I'm going to pin it right here so that it doesn't move around when I'm attaching the pieces. So the first thing we're going to do before we sew these together is I want to fold over the top of each piece so that it goes together neater when you go to put that pocket in and you go to sew, close this top piece. Now what I want to do is go to the machine and I'm going to sew about a 1/2 inch seam allowance, 3/4 of an inch, not 3/4, 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around these 3 sides, leaving this part open for turning and for adding the flap. Alrighty, so we've got these 3 sides sewn together. Now I'm just going to take out the pins. Okay, so now what we're going to do is add the flap, and the way I'm going to do that is it's a little bit tricky, but I just haven't personally figured out a better way to do it. If you guys and gals do, you can definitely let me know in the comments. But we're going to have it where you can see when the flap is open that the right sides are showing on the outside of it. I'm just going to kind of stuff it down in there, trying very hard to get it even. And you want to make sure you got enough of this flap down in there so that you can, so it's not, raw edges aren't sticking out and it doesn't get pulled out. So I've got my pins where the points are facing that way, going towards the needle, the sewing machine needle. So when I get to this first pin, I'm going to pull it out before I get to it. I'm not going to sew over it. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to press everything and do a top stitch all around. When I sew this, I'm just going to keep going basically till I've sewn all 4 edges so that everything's nice and neat and pretty. Okay, so there you have it. It's all done. You can see that I sewed all around these edges to create a top stitch and to close this up. And everything pretty much comes together nice and neat.